Bankruptcy is on everybody's mind. A lot of people ignore talking about it. Today we're going to talk about it. I've got my good friend and colleague with me, Brent George, and he's a local attorney, owns his own firm, specializes in debt relief and bankruptcy. And this is one session you aren't going to want to miss. So welcome.
Well, thank you, Lydia. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. An honor.
Awesome. So it's December, and we know a lot of people are out buying, spending a lot of money, and on their mind might be, how am I going to afford paying for all of this come January? So what are you seeing kind of going on this time of the year? And let's just start there and just having a good conversation about credit card debt and what you're seeing.
Well, you're absolutely right. This is a time of year where the credit card debts get even higher than they are. And right now they're at an all-time high. Balances are. After the holidays, a lot of people start opening their mail, opening their emails, and they realize that they have a lot of what's called unsecured debt. When we're talking bankruptcy, that's the most common type of debt that is the reason someone files for bankruptcy.
Because of their credit card debt?
Yes, most common type of unsecured debt is credit card debt, but you have a lot of unsecured loans, payday loans. God knows people have a lot of medical bills out there. Those are all considered unsecured debts because they're not tied specifically to collateral like a car loan or a home loan. And those are the most common types of debt that people seek relief for, whether through a bankruptcy or some other alternative, which we might hopefully discuss, called debt settlement. But it's unsecured debt, and that's those credit card payments every month that people are making eat away at disposable income. And oftentimes when you're making those monthly payments, you're not making any progress towards the balance. You're spinning your wheels. It's revolving debt with high interest rates, and the balances just continue to grow. And God, a lot of people are just one missed paycheck away from a catastrophe. But even if that doesn't happen, a lot of people find that they can't keep up. They can't make all their other payments that need, what we call the necessary life-sustaining payments, the rent or mortgage, insurance, food, anything related to a vehicle, relating to your children, utilities. You make all those payments. Obviously, you have to stay up on those. The credit card payments or the unsecured debts are usually the last ones to get paid.
All right, so let's unpack this. You just said a lot. So the consumer come January get all of their statements, and they still have credit card, and they still have school, and they still have food, and they still have medical bills, and they have credit card debt. And so and they have their rent or their mortgage payment. Can you help them? What's their priority? What's the first things that they should be paid? Should they pay a little bit of everything? Should they pay a lot of everything? What is your recommendation to help the people who could be in financial trouble?
Well, first off, I would recommend that people in this position pay the housing expense, and food expense and insurance expense, all that stuff that if you don't get paid, you lose something very, very valuable, like a place to live or a car to go make a living in, or education for your children. It's when you start seeing a situation based upon your household income and what you have left over after taxes are taken out at the end of the month, and then you pay all those necessary expenses that we talked about. If you start seeing a scenario where you're not able to keep up with even the minimum payments, or if you're just only able to pay the minimum payments and you see your balances are starting to grow or they're staying the same, or you're falling behind with some payments and not other payments, that's when you need to start looking at your financial situation and say, look, is there possible help out there? Is there relief for me? And bankruptcy is one of the possible options, at Chapter 7 being the most common type for me.
Is there a minimum amount? Like, let's just say I'm making, and I have my rent and, my credit card debt. Is there a minimum of credit card debt before I have to think about debt relief or bankruptcy or anything like that?
It's a great question, and I get it all the time, and it's all relative to the individual situation. For some people, they look at a balance of $10,000 or $8,000 of credit card debt, and looking at that and going, I'll never pay that off just based upon my income. I'll be in debt forever. For some people, it's more like 50,000. So, I've seen credit card debts go much higher than that, balances. And so it's everybody's own personal decision is whether it's enough to of credit card debt to justify a bankruptcy. It's a business decision is really what it comes down to. Do you if you getting eliminating this debt that we're talking about that really is kind of a burden on people, if eliminate that, it allows you to live your life the way you want to live it. You take care of your family, that it's something that you need to take a look at the options that are available.
All right. So let's just say that I I'm a customer and I get the credit card and I'm realizing it's 3 months and I just know I'm never going to get myself out of this hole. What should they be calling their credit card company? Should they call you? Should they call me as a realtor? Like,
I wish
obviously not.
I wish they could call their credit card company, and I wish it was that simple. I'm not going to say this in every instance, but 9 times out of 10, they're not going to work with you. They're just not going to help you. If you stop paying, they might work with you, but they're going to want a lump sum payment, and then you find yourself in a default where you're going to face a lawsuit. So calling the credit card company oftentimes it doesn't result in anything. Believe me, a lot of my clients try that before they call me. But calling somebody like myself, a debt relief attorney or bankruptcy attorney first to talk about the financial situation that he or she or their family is in, because I have a lot of questions I'll need to ask. It comes down to income and expenses and how many people live in the household and what their asset situation is. There's a litany of things that have to be looked at to evaluate whether bankruptcy is even an option. It's not an option for everybody, but it all comes down to really the finances of that household.
And what if one person loses a job and it's like a short-term situation?
That happens, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That could be the difference between being able to pay the bills and not being able to pay the bills. And that for bankruptcy, they'd look at the last 6 months of income. That's how they determine a baseline of your household income and whether you can qualify. So if somebody has a loss of income or reduction of income for a period of time, that could be the reason that they can qualify for bankruptcy. But a job loss or getting an injury, those are all things that I see often that result in people having to go down that road.
One more question before we actually go there. Should they call their mortgage company and put that on hold so they can pay the other bills? Because if it is, they're thinking that they're going to get a new job or they're working on something or they're waiting for something to happen or an inheritance or something. Is there something they could be doing with their car loans and their mortgages and their property taxes and their insurance, which is their home part?
Calling the mortgage company is probably a good idea, at least initially, to see if they'll work with the individuals. I'm not talking necessarily about a loan modification, but maybe they will let them skip a month or two. It's more of a temporary solution. And if somebody is truly coming into a financial windfall, they won't need to do a bankruptcy. They could probably buy some time with the creditors. The people that ultimately become clients of mine they don't have that luxury down the line. But for other people, if they know that there's help coming, that's certainly a good alternative.
All right. So let's just say you've consulted with the client and you've made a decision that bankruptcy is the right way to go. There's chapter 7 and chapter 11. So let's talk briefly about chapter 7, 11
Yeah.
and kind of what happens to their credit score.
Yeah. Well, chapter 7 and chapter 11 or chapter 13 actually are the most common. There is a chapter 11 and it is for people with significant amounts of debt. It's predominantly a business type of a bankruptcy reorganization. Chapter 7 is by far the most common type of a consumer bankruptcy. The benefits are substantial. The main one being you get to eliminate all of your unsecured debts, those debts that we talked about.
All the credit cards.
All the credit cards, the personal
Medical.
loans, things that aren't tied. And if you tied to collateral, if you want to walk away from a car loan, so you're upside down and have a massive car payment, you don't want the car anymore, you can do that in a bankruptcy. You can even eliminate certain tax debt. It has to meet a series of tests, but if it's no more than 3 years old, you can get rid of tax debt in a chapter 7. You don't have to pay anything to anybody in terms of your creditors. Generally from a property standpoint, if you have equity, You get to keep up to about a 700,000, give or take, depending on the county that you live in, of equity in your home and still qualify for Chapter 7. If you don't have equity, they have a wild card, which says that you get to keep between almost $40,000 of just various types of assets. Not talking retirement, those are separate exemptions, but money in the bank, money in stock, collectibles, things like that. If it turns out that you're not able to keep those things, then oftentimes people don't want to do a Chapter 7, they will do a Chapter 13. Chapter 13 is a repayment plan. It's, as like I said, it couldn't be more different because it's a 60, almost always 60 months. So it's a long-term commitment. The debtors are making payments every month. How much? Depends. It's generally a lot less than they would if they were paying their creditors, but they're making monthly payments, and it's based on their ability to do so. So if somebody's finances are such that they have too much income to file a Chapter 7, and that's a lot of people, then Chapter 13 says you can do this, where you're making payments, and then at the end of 5 years, you get to discharge, which is the magic word in bankruptcy, eliminate uh, all the debt that you didn't pay off through the plan. And you get to keep everything that you own. So
Wow.
Chapter 13 has its benefits. I'd say the downside about Chapter 13, it's more expensive. You're making monthly payments. And in most cases, people, I don't want to say in most cases, in a lot of cases, people, they don't finish the plan because 5 years it's a
A
long
long
time.
time.
Things change, circumstances change. But another beautiful aspect for a homeowner, particularly a homeowner that's in trouble financially with the mortgage, is that in many, many cases, you can put the amount that individual or that family owes to the mortgage company, the rearage amount, the default amount, put it into the plan. They can pay it off over 60 months. As long as you can keep making your regular payment and
Mortgage.
all your other responsibilities and pay an amount equal to approximately 1/60th, that you can, the banks have no say so because the powers of the bankruptcy court are quite substantial and they have to accept this. One more thing about a Chapter 13 that makes it good: you can strip a lien off, which
Oh,
is absolutely sensational result. It has to be an involuntary lien. So, if somebody gets sued, which is happening a lot these days from credit card companies, they are very, very aggressive. And a judgment gets imposed, and an individual may or may not have even known that happened. And then they find out that there's a lien that through an abstract of judgment that gets recorded with the court, that means a lien on your house. Um, Depending on the situation with your equity and how much you owe, we can get rid of that lien in some cases, just make it go away. So that's the benefit of a Chapter 13.
but you're doing mostly Chapter 7.
I think mostly Chapter 7 because that's the most predominant need for people right now. It's the most immediate help.
So I know a lot of people hear the word bankruptcy and Chapter 7. What happens? How do they rebuild? How long does it stay on their credit card? And,
Yeah.
just,
Well, the good news about that is that within a year of the filing of the bankruptcy, majority of my clients see their credit score go up minimum 100 points. Now, of course, it depends on where it is on the day that it's filed. We run a credit report that specifies what the credit score is on that day. And oftentimes it's lower because the individual has been in default, has stopped making the payments, and they've been dinged a few times. And then the bankruptcy, it bottoms out. But then within a year, because the bankruptcy eliminates that debt, so it's no longer something you owe, it drops off of your credit. And within a year, if you reestablish your credit post filing by paying continuing to pay your mortgage, continuing to pay your car payment, maybe getting a secured credit card, which is something that we help clients do in terms of advising them, you rebuild your credit. And it could be up in the sixes, in the sevens, and it just continues to go up from there. It does stay on your record, the record of when people run it to see if you have a bankruptcy. It's up to 7 years, but the impact of it diminishes, it seems, with every passing year. And as time goes by and your credit score goes up, the bankruptcy might still be there, but it's less of an impact than people would think.
So listen, we certainly hope that our viewers aren't in this situation, but we do know that it does exist. And I think the most important thing is there are options, and it's not something that we should put our head in the sand and ignore. Brent, is amazing, super, valuable, great information. Before we end up here, is there anything you want to add? And then I'll let everybody know how to follow you and how to follow us along. And, if you're watching this, there'll be another video that maybe you're excited about, but, some really good information.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned don't put your head in the sand. Don't ignore the issues that you see. If you see letters coming from credit card companies, if you've stopped making payments or you've identified this issue, talk to somebody like myself, see what options are available now. If you wait too long, you wait till maybe you've been sued. God forbid, you wait till there's a foreclosure notice on your door. You have less options, um, and less time, and the ramifications of maybe some things that you did that you shouldn't have done in the interim could impact your bankruptcy negatively. So uh, getting a hold of it early, identifying it early, and going and talking to somebody like myself to see if it's something that we can help you with is the key, I think.
Yeah, so super valuable information. Get ahead of it. If you know it's coming up, make a phone call. It doesn't hurt to ever make a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously look him up. Lots of great information. He's got a YouTube channel. And, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And thank you for this difficult conversation. And everybody enjoy the holidays. And hopefully this was helpful. Follow us along.
Thank you.
See you next time.
All right.